Once upon a time, in a beautiful city where tall buildings kissed the clouds and the streets shone under golden streetlights at night, there lived a man named Michael and a young woman named Ruth. Michael was the kind of man people admired. He was a successful importer of luxury fabrics, known in the market as the man who never sold anything less than the best. He had a calm confidence, and his laughter rolled through a room like a drumbeat that drew people closer. Ruth was beautiful in a graceful way, her eyes sparkled like fresh water under the sun, and her smile could calm a troubled heart. She carried herself like a queen who didn't need to raise her voice to be heard. When Michael first saw Ruth at an upscale charity gala, she was wearing a flowing emerald dress that moved like water when she walked. She was not the loudest in the room, but she was the one everyone turned to look at twice. That night, Michael leaned toward his friend and said, "This is the woman I will marry." And Michael was a man who kept his word. The traditional marriage was grand. He arrived at Ruth's family home with convoys of sleek cars. The elders stepped out carrying hampers filled with imported rice, yam piled high, gallons of palm oil, fine wines, a fat goat with a ribbon on its neck, and an envelope heavy with gold jewelry. The drummers played until the ground seemed to shake, and the women danced in bright lace wrappers that shimmered under the sun. When Ruth's father prayed for them, he said, "May your home be like a garden where peace grows without weeds, and may your wealth never run dry." Michael and Ruth began their life together in a spacious duplex in an exclusive estate. The walls were painted a soft ivory, the floors shone with marble, and the air always smelled faintly of fresh lilies from the vase on the dining table. Outside, their garden was carefully tended by a gardener, and a small fountain whispered in the courtyard. Though busy with business trips, Michael always came home with gifts, designer handbags, diamond earrings, and once, a silk scarf flown in from Italy because Ruth had admired it in a magazine. In the evenings, they would sit on their balcony, sipping fresh juice while watching the city lights twinkle like stars on the ground. Michael would talk about building a vacation home by the beach, sending their children to the best schools abroad, and traveling the world together in their later years. When their first child came, a healthy baby boy named Emmanuel, their joy overflowed. Michael was a doting father, the kind who could rock the baby with one arm while scrolling through business deals with the other. Ruth would watch them and think, "My life is more than blessed." Their friends admired them. Their home was filled with love and abundance. And in those golden days, Ruth believed the sun over her marriage would never set. But the clouds of a storm can gather silently, even above the brightest house. Not long after Emmanuel was born, Michael's mother, Mama Judith, called from her city. Her voice on the phone was full of joy. "My son," she said, "I have already packed my bags. I cannot wait another day to see my grandchild. And you know I must come for a mugwort. It is my duty, my joy, my blessing." In their culture, a mugwort was more than a visit. It was a sacred tradition. The grandmother would come to care for the new mother, teach her how to handle the baby, and help keep the house running while she recovered. Ruth knew this. She had seen it done many times for other women. And Mama Judith was not an ordinary guest. She was elegant, respected, and carried herself like a matriarch who knew her place in the world. The day she arrived, their home was alive with movement. The front gate opened to let in a black SUV, and Mama Judith stepped out wearing a deep blue lace wrapper that caught the afternoon sun. Her head tie stood tall, like a crown, and gold bangles chimed softly on her wrists as she walked. She carried herself with the grace of a queen, and behind her, the driver brought in 3 large suitcases. One was full of clothes. One was full of baby gifts. The last was full of food she had cooked herself: steaming pepper soup, jollof rice wrapped in foil, grilled fish, bottles of Zobo, and even jars of her own special spice mix. She hugged Michael first, a long, tight embrace that made her close her eyes. Then she touched Ruth's face gently and said, "My daughter, you are looking well. But you need to rest. From today, I am here to take care of you. And indeed, at first, everything was perfect. Mama Judith moved through the house like she had lived there forever. She bathed Emmanuel with sure, steady hands, humming songs from Michael's childhood. She cooked meals so fragrant the neighbors would lift their noses and wonder. She opened the windows to let the house breathe and sprinkled the floors with scented powder. In the evenings, she told stories about when Michael was a boy, about the sacrifices she had made to raise him, about the many people who had doubted he would become the man he was today. Michael would laugh, shaking his head at old memories, and sometimes even add his own versions. Ruth would sit and listen, smiling politely, but sometimes feeling like a visitor in her own living room. One afternoon, as Ruth served lunch, she noticed Mama Judith set Michael's plate before he could reach for it. "My son likes plenty meat," Mama Judith said, adding an extra piece to his portion. It was a small thing, she reasoned. As the weeks passed, Ruth began to notice something unsettling. Each evening, when Michael returned from work, he no longer came to the living room to sit with her or play with baby Emmanuel. Instead, he walked straight down the hallway into Mama Judith's room. There, he and his mother would gist, talk, and laugh so loudly that Ruth could hear every burst of laughter echoing through the house. Hours would pass, and still they remained together behind the closed door. Ruth would sit alone with Emmanuel in her arms, feeling like an outsider in her own home. The warm conversations she once shared with her husband were now replaced by muffled laughter behind another door. One night, she confronted him gently. "Michael," she said, "you spend so much time in Mama's room these days. What about me? What about us?" But Michael frowned. "Ruth, can't I talk with my mother again? She won't be here forever." Whenever she asked when Mama Judith planned to return to her own city, his answer was always the same. "I don't know." Those words cut Ruth deeper than she admitted. She began to feel like a stranger in her own home, her heart heavy, her place beside her husband slowly shrinking. And then, one night, everything changed. That night, Michael went into his mother's room just to talk. The hours stretched, and when Ruth awoke in the middle of the night, his side of the bed was empty. The house was silent, the hallway dark. She held Emmanuel close, her heart uneasy. By dawn, she still hadn't seen him. When the first light of morning slipped through the curtains, Michael finally came out of Mama Judith's room. His shirt was wrinkled, his hair untidy. Ruth's eyes met his. "Michael," she said softly but firmly, "why didn't you come to bed? Why did you sleep in Mama's room?" He rubbed his eyes and yawned as if nothing was wrong. "We were just talking, Ruth. We talked too long and I must have dozed off. That's all." Ruth wanted to believe him. She tried. But from that day, something inside her refused to rest. She began to watch more closely. Every laugh shared between them, every secret look, every evening Michael disappeared into that room, all of it fed her growing suspicion. Then, only a few days later, her fear became truth. Michael had gone again to gist with his mother. Ruth waited, her hands trembling, her heart pounding. Finally, unable to bear it, she walked down the hallway. The door to Mama Judith's room was closed, but faint sounds drifted from inside. Ruth's heart pounded as she pressed her ear to the door. The muffled sounds inside made her stomach twist. Her hand trembled on the handle, but she pushed the door open anyway. Inside, the sight before her crushed the air from her lungs. Michael lay bare-chested on top of his own mother, the silk nightgown on her body twisted, her hair rough and disheveled as she moaned beneath him. In a flash, both of them turned in shock. Michael leapt up, his face wild with fury, and barked at her with a sharp, angry voice. "Close the door, Ruth. What is wrong with you? Why are you opening without knocking?" Ruth stood frozen, her eyes wide, her breath caught in her throat. Her world cracked in that instant, and nothing would ever be the same again. That night, after Ruth caught them, her whole body shook. When Michael came to their room later, she confronted him. "Michael, what did I just see? What kind of abomination is that between you and your own mother?" Michael raised his hand, hushing her sharply, as though she were a child speaking out of turn. His eyes were hard. "Ruth, lower your voice. You saw nothing. Do you understand me? You will not speak of this to anyone. Not the neighbors, not even your own family. If you value this marriage, if you value your life, you will keep quiet." Ruth's mouth opened, but no words came. Michael turned his back and climbed into bed as though the night was ordinary, leaving her trembling with rage and fear. The next morning, Michael dressed for work as usual, tied his tie, and kissed Emmanuel's forehead. He did not look Ruth in the eyes. At the door, he gave her a final warning. "Remember, Ruth, mind your business. Forget last night." He left, and the house fell into silence. Not long after, Mama Judith called Ruth into her room. Her face carried no shame, no guilt. She spoke calmly, almost like a teacher explaining a lesson. "My daughter," she began, "I know what you saw. But listen carefully before you judge. This is not madness. This is sacrifice." Ruth froze, her chest tightening as Mama Judith continued. Michael's grandfather was part of a secret brotherhood. Before he died, he passed the covenant to Michael's father. Before his father died, he passed it to Michael. It is the price of survival. The price of wealth. If I do not sleep with him, he will die before his time. That is how our family line has been kept alive. Ruth's lips trembled. "Mama, what are you saying? This is evil." Mama Judith's eyes darkened, but her voice remained steady. "You think it is evil, but it is protection. That is how you enjoy this life of riches, this fine house, this comfort. Without it, your husband would have been buried long ago. And it does not stop with him. When Emmanuel turns 15, the mantle will fall on him. You, as his mother, must also continue the sacrifice with him, or else he too will die. That is how it has always been, and that is how it must remain." Ruth gasped, covering her mouth with both hands. Her knees weakened. Tears filled her eyes. "No, Mama," she cried, shaking her head violently. "Never. I will never be part of such evil. Not with my husband, not with my child. Never." But Mama Judith only leaned back, her expression calm, as though she had heard these words before. "Say what you like now, Ruth. The time will come, and you will remember this conversation." Ruth stumbled out of the room, her heart pounding like a drum of war. She clutched Emmanuel to her chest, whispering through her tears, "Over my dead body. I will never let them touch you. Never." That night after Mama Judith spoke her evil words, Ruth did not sleep. She lay awake, Emmanuel breathing softly in her arms, her mind racing like a storm. She knew now the truth. Their wealth was blood money, their comfort built on curses. And if she stayed, her son would one day be chained to the same darkness. When Michael returned from work the next evening, Ruth smiled faintly and served him food. She said nothing of Mama's words. She acted as though she had accepted her fate. Michael relaxed, believing her silence meant surrender. Mama Judith watched Ruth with sharp eyes, but said no more. But in her heart, Ruth was making a plan. Over the next days, she quietly saved what she could. She packed a small bag with Emmanuel's clothes, a little cash, and the baby's birth documents. She hid them under her bed. She prayed in whispers when no one could hear her, asking God for strength and wisdom. Then one night, while Michael was in Mama Judith's room, Ruth held Emmanuel close, wrapped him in a soft shawl, and stepped out quietly. The house was silent, the street lights glowing dim. Her footsteps were quick, her heart steady. She walked past the fountain, past the iron gates, and into the waiting arms of the night. Michael and Mama Judith did not notice her absence until morning. When they found Emmanuel's cot empty, panic filled the house. Michael stormed through every room, shouting Ruth's name, but the walls gave no answer. Mama Judith's eyes burned with anger. "She has ruined everything," Mama hissed. "Without the child, the covenant will turn on us." He searched tooth and nail for them. He called friends, bribed drivers, and even stormed Ruth's parents' home, threatening them with clenched fists. "If you know where she is, tell me now," he shouted, eyes blazing. But Ruth's parents, though terrified, truly did not know. Ruth had hidden her tracks well. Days turned to weeks. Michael's search spread wider. He paid policemen, hired informants, and whispered Ruth's name in markets and bus stations. But every road came back empty. At last, exhausted and defeated, Michael gave up. Ruth went to another city, where no one knew her name. There she started afresh, working hard, raising Emmanuel with love, and teaching him the ways of light and truth. Life was not as rich as before, but it was free. Meanwhile, in the house she left behind, Michael and Mama Judith continued in their dark ways. But evil does not last forever. At first, Michael tried to live as if nothing had changed. He went to work, signed contracts, smiled at business partners. But slowly, the cracks began to show. His deals collapsed, money slipped through his fingers, and men who once bowed to him now turned their faces away. Then came sickness. A strange fever that no doctor could explain. Michael's strong body weakened, his skin grew pale, and nightmares chased him every night. He called for his mother, but Mama Judith herself had begun to lose her mind. She would wander the house at midnight, muttering to shadows. Sometimes she laughed at nothing. Sometimes she screamed that people were chasing her. Her once elegant clothes hung loose as her body wasted away. In the end, Michael died before his 40th year, his wealth gone, his name disgraced. Mama Judith did not last much longer. She was found one morning lying cold in her bed, her eyes wide open, staring into nothing. The curse they embraced swallowed them whole. As for Ruth, she built a quiet life in another city. She raised Emmanuel with love, taught him the fear of God, and gave him a future free of chains. Though she had little wealth, she had peace, and that peace was worth more than gold. And so, the story reminds that marriage is not just to a person but to a family. Know their roots, for hidden roots can choke the tree of your happiness. Wealth gained through evil never endures, it destroys the hands that hold it, and the home that shelters it. If this tale touched your heart, remember to like, comment, share, and subscribe for more timeless folktales with lessons that can change lives. What would you do if you were in Ruth's place, stay and fight, or leave for peace?